I don't wanna be revolutionary. I don't wanna be revolutionary.
In this video, I'll be covering the story of Hotline Miami. I'll try making it as short as possible, so there might be things that I won't mention like they never happened in the game. So I recommend playing the game to receive the story the way it's meant to be. 1985, in the occupied lands of the Hawaiian island during the Cold War, was a group of soldiers named the Ghost Wolves. They do operations and kill Soviets to defend US territory. The colonel, which is the camp leader or general, drinks a lot one night and wears a severed panther head on his head with a weird symbol in the middle of his forehead. The drinks he drank cause him to accidentally reveal the truth, and he tells his soldiers that they're just like animals, sent to kill or be killed. Violence and destruction is just a part of their nature. After a long war between the two sides, the Ghost Wolves were sent back to America. Beard, or which I call Jep in my case, walks outside his shop in California. But when he leaves his shop, he's met with that. That was a nuclear missile launched by the Soviets on San Francisco, resulting in a massive destruction and the death of millions of Americans. The American government knew about what was going to happen. Despite that, they refused to reply with the same, since it might end up being the end of human beings, and chose to become an ally to the Soviets. The US goal now is not to fight the Soviets no more, but instead, they're focusing on making people forget about the bad things Soviets did. And that's by stopping the violence and racism toward Russian tourists. On the other hand, a large Russian influence is formed. Russian mafia has grew, and it's being supported by both Soviet and American governments to keep expanding and spreading in the entire country, which is upsetting the Americans, the true Americans. The ones that are patriots, not some pro-Soviet pricks. As a result, anti-Russian sentiments began rising. Many organizations stood to break down the Russo-American alliance. The Russian mafia, led by a man nicknamed Father, moves to Miami, Florida. They start to expand their business even more, which focuses on criminal activities mostly. Drug trading Soviet weapons that were left after the end of the war, and they develop a criminal monopoly in Miami, which triggers those anti-Russian sentiments that we just talked about, till the degree that it pushes somebody to do something about it. Richter lives with his sick mother, and one day he receives a strange phone call for the first time. It orders him to do weird things like paint a symbol at certain locations. Wait, doesn't that look like... Alright. These strange phone calls continue to bother Richter, so he decides to ignore their orders this time. One day he wakes up to find his car burning. He checks for phone mails, and they threaten him to kill his mother next if he insists on ignoring their orders. The strange phone callers provide Richter with an address of a Russian mafia location and ask him to do it. He gets ready by wearing his animal mask and clears the area. After this, they stop hunting Richter but transfer to Jacket, one of the survivors in the Hawaiian island during the war and before the alliance with the Russians, and they ask him to do the same job: kill Russians. But this time, police start noticing that a lot of massacres have been happening lately, targeting the Russian mafia specifically. Since the police are pro-Russia, they get pretty upset when realizing that American citizens started being violent toward the Russian mafia. Jacket continues to answer and obey the phone calls, as they ask him to kill more Russians. But this time Jacket finds a dead man in the location, not wearing a white suit, and with an animal mask next to his body, meaning that he was sent by the phone callers before Jacket. During another mission, Jacket rescues a woman in another Russian mafia house. While she's American, she was still willing to join the Russians, and despite that, Jacket refuses to kill her. Another masked murderer is introduced, known as Biker. This masked murderer is quite special since he has different goals, which are finding out who are the ones behind those strange phone calls. The next time he receives a mission, he abandons it completely and heads to the manager's office, killing him to use his computer. He hacks into their system and finally finds the true source of the calls. Meanwhile, Jacket receives a phone call in the same house he just slaughtered the Russians in. The phone callers ask Jacket to quickly head to the office to kill Biker. After they somehow found out that he abandoned their mission and is doing a good job so far gathering sensitive information about them. Jacket arrives right in time and a fight between the two masks begins, resulting in a draw. Both of them leave the place alive and Biker takes the information he just gathered before doing so. Now he heads to where those phone callers should be and he finds that, surprisingly, it's just the two of them. He asks them why they're doing it and they confess that they work for a patriotic American movement with the goal of getting rid of the Russian influence and returning the US to its image. The phone callers send Richter to kill Jacket after they knew that he failed their mission on killing a biker. So Richter does shoot him and his girl, but police officers arrive and they arrest Richter and take Jacket to the hospital. They want Jacket to recover from his injury as soon as possible so that they question him since he is a prime suspect in the Russian murder cases. But Jacket escapes the hospital. After he comes back home, Jacket wears his jacket and he heads to the prison. He kills every police officer on his way, and this was the first time of him killing Americans with cold blood. While he's in prison, he talks to Richter there. Richter said that it was the phone calls that forced him to do it. And Jacket's goal now is getting rid of the phone calls. But he does have no clue about who they are or what they want. So he collects some documents that study the case of the masks in that same police station. And he thinks it's the Russians who were also the phone callers, which is completely not true. And he kills the father. It was pretty rough, but not for Jacket. Now it's 1991. Jacket is arrested. The Russian mafia is weakened and the American government improves its relations with the Russians. On October 21st, 1991, a group of 4 friends is sitting in a bar. 5 actually, who were a part of the Ghost Wolves. They became fans to Jacket, so they used their brains to find Russian mafia addresses. Evan is a writer. He is investigating the 1989 killings committed by Jacket to write his book, named Masks. He contacts a Russian with connections who gives him an address. On that address, on the 2nd floor, he finds Petrov, who tells him that the mass killers were too organized to be vigilantes and never talked under torture. Evan then visits Richter's mother, who provides minimal information and refuses to clarify details about her son. Finally, Evan approaches Biker, the only person who knows the truth. Biker tries to explain his experiences with killing Russians and receiving strange phone calls, but his disorganized speech frustrates Evan. Biker asks for reward money for another drink, but Evan dismisses his story, thinking it's just drunken rumbling. After this, many events occur. A former Russian member named Henchman leaves the mafia and gets killed by the fans. The Russians start an operation where they kill Colombians controlling a bank. Pardo clears a Colombian ship, resulting in weakening them. All of the events resulted on one thing: re-establishing Russians as the kings of the streets. Meanwhile, Evan still wants to finish his book. Richter calls him and asks him if he can get a plane ticket and tell a story in return. And Richter tells him everything, which was right what Evan needed to finish his book. Evan then reads a letter from his wife Sharon. She asks him to choose between work and family, and she asks him to call her after reading the letter. Evan now is left with two options: either walk to the typewriter and finish his book, or call Sharon and give everything he have done so far concerning the book. One of the fans stole Henchman's phone, the former Russian mafia member, and the phone is ringing right now. And it's being called by the current Russian mafia leader named Sun to spend time in a party celebrating the success of their previous bank operation. Ash doesn't say anything, and Sun throws his phone in anger, thinking that Henchman is refusing the offer since he didn't know what happened to him, and takes some Russian pills to relieve his disappointment. The fans arrive, each one of them clear a floor. They agree to meet in the roof, where they will be escaping. Alex and Ash get to the roof, and no one is answering their radios. The rest of the fans were taken down by Sun, who got insanely high from the Russian product and began hallucinating.
Alrighty, welcome to the hell I've created myself.
He saw his own men as demons, and he slaughtered them all, and killed the fans as well. Police arrived in the headquarters, but they found Tony, who was the only survivor, and he collected the bodies of both of his friends, and he's now waiting to be arrested by the SWAT team. Pardo enters and shoots Tony, rejecting his surrender. Pardo notices a body in the ground. It was Sun. He fell down from the terraces to his own death. In the following days, Pardo arrives at a crime scene, but tells the officer he's too tired to investigate and heads home to sleep. Waking up in the middle of the night, he searches frantically for his revolver but can't find it. Returning to the crime scene, he discovers his gun on a table with a weird-looking stranger sitting nearby. When Pardo asks what he's doing there, the man reveals it was created by him. Pardo demands his gun back, but the man chokes him, revealing the truth. Pardo is the Miami killer, and the stranger who was sitting on the table represents his murderous side. Realizing he's left behind a lot of evidence that could be traced, Pardo worries that the police will determine the truth, but then he awakens by his ringing phone. He learns the station needs him urgently. He claims to be unwell and then barricades his doors and aims his revolver, preparing for the police to break in. Richter and his mother are in the Hawaiian island watching TV when the announcements of the assassination of both of the US presidents and the Russian president, the Russo-American coalition, was brought down. Suddenly, a bright explosion from a Russian nuclear strike kills them. The scene shifts to show other regions in America suffering the same fate, indicating multiple nuclear strikes destroyed the whole country, which will most likely be followed by the destruction of Russia as well, and hence, the rest of the countries. But if you don't want your country to be included and destroyed, make sure to like this video to save it and subscribe to the channel.